Welcome to the 2 for 5 podcast. In this episode, Drew and Christian are joined by a special guest, Betsy Gray, founder and CEO of the Social Bullpen. Today's discussion revolves around imposter syndrome and its impact on professionals in the workplace. We delve into the reasons behind this phenomenon and explore ways to overcome it. Join us as we share our insights and tips to help professionals tackle imposter syndrome and achieve their full potential. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 6 of the Marketing Rundown podcast. I'm here with Drew and a special guest, our boss, CEO, and the founder of the Social Bullpen, Betsy Gray.
Hi.
So today we are discussing imposter syndrome, and we're going to talk about it personally and within marketing agencies and get a little bit of insight from Betsy, who's been in the game for quite a long time. So, Drew, you want to take it away?
Sure. I don't have to shout out Betsy. Betsy's here, which is very exciting. I'll just go ahead and start with the story of how you first started working for the company before you started your current company. That's probably one of my favorite stories about how Jimmy met you and kind of what you had to go through with that.
So there was an opportunity that was relayed to me by some mutual friends, and I remember thinking long and hard about it. I was in the market looking for a different opportunity, and this opportunity came up, but I need to go quickly, to meet with them. I wasn't really sure what the urgency was, but I was a little concerned about it because my husband's a civil engineer. Anyone that knows me, I'm not a math person. I don't love numbers. My husband's a civil engineer and he deals with a lot of math and calculations and things like that. And this opportunity was at an accounting firm. And I was like, I don't know if this is going to be the right fit for me. But, because I had some relationships, I was like, certainly I'll go talk to him. You never know, be open to the opportunity. So I did that. And, so through conversations, I instantly knew that this was, not the regular stereotypical accounting firm, just by the personalities of, the folks that I met that day. And I remember leaving, being really, really excited about the opportunity and how wrong I was, that this might not be a good fit for me. But the kicker was that, they wanted me to start right away because our CEO was, at the time, he was leaving to go out of town. He didn't know how long he was going to be gone. He was working with, on a disaster relief project. And so he was leaving, the following Tuesday, and said, hey, I need you to start then. And this was, like a Friday. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay. So I did. And so I get there that morning and meet with him literally for maybe 10, 15 minutes, my very first day there. I had, some marketing background, but I'd never done accounting marketing before. And he handed me some business cards. And he said, listen, I'm leaving. I don't know how long I'll be gone. Just figure it out. And here's 4 business cards. Call these people and they'll help you figure out your job. I was like, well, alrighty. So the 3 people, or 3 of the cards were other accounting marketing folks who were part of an alliance of accounting firms that the firm belonged to. And so I called them and talked to them, and they gave me some terrific advice that was very industry specific, things I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere else. But that really helped me because, at the time I'm excited about this opportunity, but there's that little voice in my head like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. How are you going to figure this out? And but, looking back, I realized I didn't necessarily need to know exactly what I was doing, but what I did need, and thank goodness what I did have was, I was up for the challenge. I was up for it. I wasn't afraid. Failure could have happened at any time, but I wasn't afraid of that. But I was balancing all that with the, that little inner voice that was like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. So anyway, so I called all of these folks and talked through them and got some really good advice. And then I had to kind of figure it out, what I was going to do. The best part was that my desk where they gave me my workspace, it was right next to the most frugal partner at the time who didn't really understand what marketing was. And, on a daily basis, he would come by and ask me, like, what are you doing here? Why aren't you out selling? What are you doing here? What are you doing here? And so, that was really kind of, it's like he was speaking out loud, like what I was feeling inside, like, what am I doing? Like, can I do this? But I was lucky enough to just to have that inner, maybe it's because I'm stubborn, but I had that other little inner voice was like, challenge accepted. Let's see if I can do this. Let's see if I can do this. But I think it's really important. And the one thing I'm really thankful for, and it may have just been because I didn't know any better, but I just wasn't willing to give up. And I wasn't really afraid to fail at that point, even though I was still having those thoughts of like, you don't know what you're doing. So it was a decision that I don't regret. It's a decision that I'm so proud and so happy and so grateful that I did that, because it just opened up a whole world of opportunity for me.
Do you think initially that you guys got along better? Not mainly, but I guess kind of how do you think it would have been different had Jimmy been there, or the partner, not been frugal and like embrace what you're doing, rather than, I think that you being on your own and having to figure things out may have been like a plus for you, like kind of showing your initiative.
Well, yeah, looking back, I think it did. At the time I was like, I didn't realize I was going to be thrown into the fire to sink or swim, or, whatever you want to say. But I do think it helped, because there was really no option. If I wanted this job and I wanted this role and I wanted to be a part of this company, I had to figure it out. So
Right.
I think that was very helpful. And I'm grateful, honestly, looking back, to have had a mentor and, someone who's become a dear, dear friend of mine saw something in me that maybe I wasn't seeing, and gave me that opportunity, gave me that I don't know, maybe that safety net, because I don't think in his mind, he wasn't as worried about whether I was going to fail or not. I mean, I was, they never had a marketing person before. They, had never really had anybody in house like that before that wasn't, an accountant. And, I think he just wasn't worried about it. I think he was more excited about the opportunity of having a marketing function than what if I failed,
Imposter syndrome. And an interesting one that I found was Harvard Business Review. And they define it as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that I cannot say this word, persist despite evident success. So throughout your career, rising in ranks, taking on more responsibilities, at every level, do you feel like there's new, I guess, syndromes, or from the first day you started in your career, do you think those are still there?
I think me personally, they have been with me all along, to be 100% honest. Even though I can look back now and see that there was obviously something that I was doing well or doing right to get offered, opportunities and roles. But I still had those same feelings of, can I do this? Am I qualified to do this? I can't do this. And then it moves to those feelings of, oh gosh, what if they find out that I'm not as great as, what they thought, or, I think those come along the way. I think you start with them. I mean, I can speak for myself personally. I started with them. I still have them to this day. I started this company. It'll be 6 years in November. I still have those things, along the way throughout my career, when I've been asked to speak, for one thing, to be on this podcast, I was having these feelings last night of like, that's what I was like, hey, what are we talking about? I really wanted to get my thoughts together because I want to do a good job, and I don't want to, come across like I don't, that I'm not confident, that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I've always kind of tried to rise to the challenge, and I'll say, yes, I'll be happy to do that. And then instantly, my thought goes to, that? What have I gotten myself into? What am I gonna, they're gonna see that I'm not capable or I'm not qualified. But so I think it's something that continues. I mean, for me personally, it's been just a part of my experience and who I am from the beginning until today.
Do you ever try to sit there and think about how far you have come from when you first started and kind of your first role, and then be like, wow, I've, probably done a lot more than I ever expected I would do. And now I've got my own company and I've got employees, even though you may want to kill me sometimes. I just know that that may be like a good exercise to do for you, just to show that there's no way that you are an imposter in your industry because you've been doing this for so long and you're so good at it. And I just am curious if you've ever just sat there and actually thought about it.
Probably not as much as I, maybe should. But I think that's just that's just something, within me. And, it's easy to sit here and say, no, I don't ever think about that. And it's easy for you to say that from the outside looking in at me, and saying, hey, oh, but you've done all these great things. That still doesn't change the fact that you can still have that inner voice that is making you feel like you are an imposter, that you're not good enough, that you're not capable. But I think I've always kind of combated that by just saying yes and just doing the work, just doing it. And always wanted my work, my team's work, to speak for itself. So should I spend some time on some self-reflection? Probably. But, I haven't, and I don't spend a lot of time on it, but I just keep pushing.
It's funny because it sounds what you're saying at a core level is like exactly what I deal with. And then I saw a study, Cision posted it, 65% of professionals feel that, say they have imposter syndrome. So obviously there's a lot of people saying that they deal with this, and every profession it's not just marketing, but it's interesting how people attack it differently. But I think the easiest way to attack it is exactly how you said, is just hit it head on, do the work and figure it out. And then at some points you got to lean on other people, but depending on who you are as a person, I guess believing yourself is harder than some other things, because it's still there. Still thinking that you're not worthy, or the not know. For me, it's not the not worthy, being worthy of whatever. It's the not knowing. I feel like I can figure it out through training and just figuring out. But being worthy is like, man, I feel like I don't belong here or don't deserve it. That's where it comes into my mind. But
I think, something I would respond to you is, you mentioned the stat, 65%. I would say that it's probably a lot higher than that, mm-hmm. and maybe only 65% admitted to that. Mm-hmm. Because I think this is something that a lot of people deal with, and that they consistently manage. That was the one thing that, with age comes wisdom and experience. And what I can tell you that I have learned along the way is that, it's okay to not know everything, because, you learn along the way that there are people that are ahead of you that went through these same things. They didn't know everything, from the get-go. They didn't know it all. And they had to learn things, the hard way. They had to deal with their imposter syndrome. They had to solve problems. They had to learn to know and understand what they didn't know. And things to be aware of. But nobody is walking around, in life and in business knowing everything. They may come across that way, but I can almost guarantee you that there is not a single solitary person on this earth that knows everything, and that they've had to learn lessons. And so you get that education by experience. You get that experience by doing the things, and diving in. And, always looking for ways to improve. But, it's unrealistic. And that's something I wish I would have told, or realized. But looking back now, if I had to tell my younger self something when I was starting out, it's like, stop worrying so much. about what other people think. Stop worrying about, are you worthy enough? Of course you are. Why wouldn't you be? And that and it's okay to not have all the answers, and it's okay to say that. It's okay to say, I don't know, but you can follow that up with, I don't know. I would like to know, and I'll figure that out. But it's absolutely okay and very normal to not know it all. I'm learning those things right now, in my own business, I know we all work as a team and everything, but there's a lot of things that are going on in the background on the business operations side that we don't discuss as a team. And, things that I'm specifically dealing with and working out and understanding, changes that I need to make and other things I needed to be focused on. And during some of those conversations I've been having, with some of my advisors is, I hear myself saying, oh gosh, like I'm so dumb. Like, why didn't I think of that? Or why didn't I realize that? Or why didn't I should have known that, but instead, and they're telling me the same things I'm telling you right now is that, lots of people don't know this, you're so focused on, growing your business and serving your team and serving your clients. But there's other things, but that's what we're going to help you for. So leaning on people and listening to that advice. But that was some of the most profound words that they shared with me was, in my mind, I'm literally thinking, why did I not know this? And like, those are the words, that's what I'm hearing in my mind. And they're all looking at me smiling like, it's normal, 100% normal. And I'm like, I've been running this company for, going on 6 years. And, I've got a couple decades of experience behind me and still having those thoughts. So completely normal.
Betsy, you got me out here taking notes.
No. I love it.
More notes than you took during school.
That's 100% true. I think both of y'all can attest to that. We had classes together, and I know Betsy knows. I guess moving on to, you've mentioned, your new company. What advice would you have to someone who's probably wanting to take that leap of faith and trying to do their own thing rather than, work for somebody else, or they've tapped out of their development of where they're at, or they're just wanting to do something different or do something new? What kind of advice would you have for them? I mean, through your first 5 years.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. If it's something that you are truly drawn to do, it's something that you're truly passionate about, don't let anything stand in your way. Don't be afraid, especially especially when you're just starting out in your career. Like you don't have nearly as much to lose, in the beginning as you do later on when you have more, family obligations, and, other, financial responsibilities, things like that. But, failure is just part of it. I mean, it's part of our learning experience. If you think back to, how you got to where you guys are today, I promise you, it was not just a series of overwhelming successes that got you today. Everybody takes a different path. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. And everybody takes a different path. Don't get caught up in the comparison game. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. It's too late. It's behind you. Move forward. Keep looking forward. Learn from, your failures. Learn from your mistakes. Learn from your wins. And then, take all that information and just keep moving forward. But if you go through life, whether, personally, professionally, being afraid to fail, you're probably not going to see a lot of growth anywhere.
As a business owner yourself and a leader, mighty fine one is that. At that, what advice would you have for people who have their own businesses or are in some type of leadership position where junior level employees or any employee for that matter are dealing with these syndromes? Because it can harm the business and it will harm somebody's potential to produce. So from a personal level, and I guess from a business perspective, how would you advise these leaders to deal with their employees' imposter syndrome?
I would encourage them to recognize when it could be happening. And I would encourage them to open a dialogue with their employees, talk them through it, listen, share their own personal experience, because I think that's super helpful to hear, like, you're not alone. This is normal. It can be difficult because sometimes it takes some courage for someone to step up and go, oh gosh, but I don't want them to think they made a mistake hiring me. I don't want them to, maybe I've oversold myself. We've all heard, the little term, girl bossing a little close to the sun. I think that goes, for everybody. You think, oh wow, I really did this, but I think having the courage to speak up. And say, that maybe you're having these feelings and whatnot, and you just want to talk, I think that's super important. And you may not want to, show that to your boss. I can certainly understand, but, there may be a peer, there may be, a supervisor, someone that you work side by side with every day, where you just got to talk through those. But I think the more we talk about those things, the better off everybody is going to be, because if there's something, I would hope that any of you guys would be, feel comfortable, bringing that to my attention. I also recognize that you might not, but so it's kind of a weird balancing act. But if you can, I would say for employees, having the courage to speak to somebody about it. And then also maybe doing some of what Drew mentioned earlier, and that's doing a little self-reflection about, listen, okay, you didn't get here by accident. You got here because this, and this, and also with leaders, being open, recognizing that, and maybe even without asking if someone's experiencing that, finding an opportunity to kind of introduce that into a conversation, about your personal struggles with that, or your experiences with that. One thing that, I had never thought about, but I've heard a lot of talk about it recently is, keeping a list of your good things, keeping a list, like your accomplishments, like the things that you're like, that you can think back and think, I was really proud of this, whether it's when you were a kid, when you're high school, college, work, whatever. Just keep a list of that. And so you have that to kind of refer back to when you're down, like, I'm a loser, I don't book, you can pull that, notes app up on your phone, and you're like, okay, I did this, okay, all right, I'm not a loser, and it kind of helps you. And then, what worked for me was, I got got stopped. I stopped. Let me start over. What was helpful to me was just, basically, stop my pity party and get busy, get back on doing the work. That's always been kind of my passion, the work.
This was a good segue into my next question. Everybody is good at that. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, I will say. And so I want you to talk about the importance of surrounding yourself with a team that is supportive of your strengths and basically you being, good with their weaknesses.
I think it's super important. One of the lessons I learned early on was, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. That in building a team, you wanted to be able to, bring people in and around you to work with you that had strengths that you didn't have. Because if we are, if I build a team and we are all at the same level, we all have the same experience, we all have the same strengths, then we're not really a team. We're just a group of people that all do the same thing, and there's going to be no room for growth. And so I think it's super important to find the people in your life, in your business, in your work that you can rely on. Like I'm not a graphic designer, by trade, and being able to find, someone who can bring, their design expertise and knowledge, is super helpful. And it brings balance, to our team, having different age groups, it brings different perspectives. It just breeds growth, in education, experience, and in business. So I think that's super important.
Who's the smartest person on our team? Just kidding. But yeah, I was just joking. I just thought it was funny.
I think I mean, because, I have weaknesses, and I recognize those, and I know there's all the things that, I don't know how to do or I'm not great at doing. That's where I need someone to fill in the gap. And at the same time, there are things I'm good at, and I can bring my knowledge, my expertise, my experience, to those areas. But if, like I said earlier, if we're all doing the same thing, we all have the same experience, same expertise, then that's just kind of, what are we doing?
You're not very versatile.
No, not at all.
It's not what a bullpen's about.
No, it's not. It's not at all. I mean, that's, the true, so quick story. I'll try to make it quick. About how once, what this company was going to be, what this, the name was. I had spent 13 years with my, previous employer, and I dearly loved them. I loved the work that I did for them. I loved the people I worked with, and but they were also very entrepreneurial, and I think part of that rubbed off on me, and it made me understand that that it was possible. And I really started thinking about, how I could really serve them better if I would step out on their own or on my own, and, build a team that could serve them better and more efficiently. And, it took me a while. I started having the thoughts, and I kept thinking through it and kept thinking through it. And then finally, when I realized that what was holding me back was, what were they going to say when I told them? And as much as I loved and respected and cared about what they thought, it finally, I realized that it was, this was so important to me that I was willing to take this step, even if they weren't supportive. And that was one of the scariest things I've ever done in my entire life. I'm happy to report that it was a terrific, supportive, wonderful conversation. But, so I, like, okay, get that behind me. I got to think of a name. What am I trying to do here? And, baseball had been a big part of, like, my personal life. And I just kept coming back to the name Bullpen, because it was, your bullpen comes off the bench, in different areas, different parts of the game. It's a collection of pitchers with different strengths, different abilities, different weaknesses. And that really described, like, the kind of team I wanted to build and the kind of services that we could provide to people. So I really felt that was super fitting. And,
that clip is going to be fire, Betsy. That was great.
Oh, good.
Keep going. Sorry.
That's all right. But honestly, that's what.
I just thought that was really good. Like, that's going to be really good to be able to use to, like, describe our team and kind of like an insight into our name. I mean, I don't think we've ever, like, clearly defined that on anything, and having that as a reel or like, that's going to be fire.
We had, like, on our old website, there was some verbiage there somewhere, but I don't know. Like, we've never done a video on it, that's for sure.
No, but I thought that was a very good description of kind of where you came up with the name, and then kind of a description of how you wanted to put together your team. I thought that was really good.
Okay.
Can't wait to use that.
Well, good. I mean, I think it was super important to me to have the right name that could illustrate, the kind of team that I hoped that we would be, and that the team that we have become. And if you think about it, if there are any baseball fans out there, if you think about the pitchers that make up, the bullpen, if you had all starters, then you're limiting your ability. You need starters, but you also need, relievers. You need setup men. You need closers. You need lefties. You need righties. You need guys who are throwing gas, and then you need guys who are, throwing pitches with lots of movement where you can fool them and things like that. So there's just a lot of situational. I just really felt like that could translate very easily into, the kind of services and the kind of that we provide, and the people that are on our team.
I like being in the bullpen and facing it.
Yeah, 100%. He likes being in the bullpen rather than facing it. I also think the social bullpen sounds a lot better than the social toolbox. So I think that was a good choice.
Well, I think too, you talk about, Christian, you make the comment that you'd rather be in the bullpen than face the bullpen. But, that's how, those are the kind of tools and weapons, that you have, that we can, provide to our clients, to attack their marketing, to, help them reach their goals. We have all these resources that are lined up with different skill sets. And I think that's attractive to them rather than just, hey, these are a bunch of, people with 20 years of experience. Well, but if it's all similar, I think it's much more attractive to our clients, much more helpful. It brings value to them if they have, just a well-rounded team of resources at their fingertips.
That's a perfect segue to kind of my next question as well. Getting in, and I looked for results on this and I didn't find much, but like, imagine the business as a person, I guess, and the business is going to have imposter syndrome itself, whether that be from the head or just the whole company itself. So as a business owner of a marketing agency, how would you advise, I guess, a business owner or the decision maker who might think that they're not deserving of an outsourced agency or an agency in general, or are not good enough or not big enough, or, just don't feel like they want it, they need it, but don't feel like they're deserving of it yet? How would you talk to them, show them what we can do, what an agency can do, and the benefits of it? And how would you convince them that they are deserving?
Well, I think the first thing I would start with is, learning about who they are, what their business is, what they're trying to accomplish, and, kind of where they are in terms of, being able to invest not just money in marketing, but time in that. A lot of business owners will, especially when you're first starting out, you're like, I got this. I can do the bookkeeping. I can do the work. I can do the payroll. I can. I fell into that trap of, well, I don't have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of capital that I can just, I need to go get an accountant. Well, I figured out real fast that that was one of the things I needed to outsource right away. Because it wasn't something I was good at. It wasn't something I really understood. I knew it was important, but when I really sat down and thought about how much time it was taking me doing something for the company that, number one, I wasn't good at, number two, I didn't understand, and it was taking a lot of my time. So really, I sat down and I thought, okay, well, if I can spend X amount of dollars on this bookkeeping, this is going to free up so much more of my time that I can train my people, spend time on clients, you do more work, go after new clients. And it was a mindset change. And, every business deserves, every business is worthy. If someone's putting their blood, sweat, tears, and heart and soul behind it, of course, they deserve marketing. I think it's just a mindset change where they think, well, I can't afford that. I can't do that. But you really need to look at what it's costing you to do those things yourself. The other thing is, that I learned early on, another area that I outsourced to was, IT support and backups and stuff like that. I, had a background, in IT years and years ago. I am tech savvy. I understand how hardware works. I understand how software works. And I don't hate it, but it was the time that I was spending supporting, being the IT function of our company. It was a terrible use of time for me. That was not like the best use of my time. And that was the next step, as I went to doing that. So I could spend the time doing the things that I loved. And that's, working with my team and, serving clients, doing the fun work. I didn't want to ever have to explain to you guys that wasn't able to get something accomplished because I'd been, working on IT issues or solving problems. I mean, so we hired somebody to do that for us and manage the backups and do all of our patches and, upgrades and updates. And that's been a huge time saver for me as well. But I had those same thoughts, like, I can't afford that. We're just a small company. I can't afford that. But when I realized how much it was costing me, not, trying not to spend money and that I couldn't afford it. I realized that was silly. So.
I think it's a good point. I mean, you're kind of going back to the strengths and weaknesses, knowing what you're good at and what you need to be spending your time on.
Yeah.
Like you said, that you could probably do that stuff if you had an unlimited hours in the day, but everybody only gets 24. But no, I think that was a great answer and good question, Christian. What? What do you think Social Bullpen will look like in the next 5 years? You've already had the first 5. What's the next 5 look like? What do you hope for? I guess the question.
What do I hope for?
Mm-hmm.
I hope to have just a first for my team. That's the most important thing I have, that is to me, that's part of this company, are my people. I hope that everyone is happy, healthy, content to a degree, but still hungry, to a degree. I mean, that's something I've never really lost. I've always had like this, maybe it's a feature, maybe it's not, but just a desire for more, for better, and always better education, learning more education, understanding things and growing. But I hope I have a healthy, happy, team that is happy with themselves, happy with where they are, that they still feel challenged. I hope that our client roster has grown, and it's just full of people we love working with. People that we understand, their aches and pains, and we understand how to solve their problems. So that's what I'm hoping for. People ask me all the time, like, if there is, do I have a number in mind? Is that, and for me, not a math person, not a number person, most of all. Numbers don't mean as much to me, or like how large of a team, or how many clients, or how much revenue. But it's most important to me, like, that the team that we have is happy, it's healthy, and they are getting the most that they can out of life, while they're working with us. I mean, that's why we try to do a lot of different things with how we work. We are fully remote. We have a 4-day work week, and because I want you guys to be happy, and I feel like that if you're happy, you're healthy, you're going to be more productive, but you're going to feel that sense of accomplishment. You're going to feel that, like, I'm really hitting my stride. So I hope that in 5 years that you guys all feel that, and that I'm still here, just supporting and loving on y'all, and giving you opportunities to grow.
I thought that was going to be my last question, but I thought of one while you were talking.
Okay.
You mentioned you had mentors and other people that you kind of would talk to or confide in about when you started opening your or going out on your own. Is there any piece of advice that you could pinpoint that kind of made you feel like confident enough and kind of got rid of your imposter syndrome, going back to our subject, that kind of made you feel like you could do this?
I don't know that there was, well, I will say this. As of last night, as of this morning, I still get those imposter syndrome feelings. For me, it's never has gone away. But has it gotten easier to deal with? And by the more times that I do the things that I'm afraid of doing, or the things that I feel like I'm not qualified to do, the more times I do those, the easier it is for me to be like, girl, you got this, just do it, and because at the end of the day, it may not be perfect. This podcast might not be perfect, but you know what? I've gotten a lot of value out of talking with you guys, and hearing your questions, and I'm hoping that I'm providing you all some value. And if it gets 5 views, it gets 5 views, but I don't see that as a failure. And so, one of the things I thought about early on was, what do I want to do about this company? what's the impression that I want to give to my team, to my clients, to the vendors I work with. And that's, I want to focus on us focusing on the right stuff, not the small stuff. And I think literally I wrote it down as, I don't sweat the small stuff. We sweat the right stuff, because sometimes you can get bogged down in details, and you can get bogged down in, is it perfect? We just have to, sometimes done is better than perfect. And especially when you're dealing with imposter syndrome, is doing it, giving it a whirl. Even if you fail, it doesn't matter. In the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. It's giving you experience. It's going to give you education and courage for the next time, because the next time you get asked to do something that you feel like is outside of your wheelhouse or you're not qualified to do, you can think back, okay, it didn't kill me last time. It wasn't as painful as I thought. Nobody, nobody hurt me. It was terrifying, but hey, I did, I got good feedback, and it was okay. And so you just try to take those, that experience and learn from it, and just keep saying yes.
We had a coach in college. One of his sayings was, it's a good, I live by the saying, it's control the controllables. And I think this ties in exactly with imposter syndrome, because you brought up like the view count of the podcast, and that's exactly what I mean by this is we're controlling that we're making this. We can't control how many people watch it. We can influence it, yes, but we can't control the outcome of whatever happens. And the same thing with life. So, and I think that's where a lot of imposter syndrome comes in. Like for me personally, is like, what's the outcome? Is the outcome what I thought it would be? Maybe it's not. Then it doesn't matter, because you just adapt to the next situation. But as long as you're doing the work to the best of your abilities and making a decision, it doesn't have to be the right decision, because it might not. The wrong decision might be the right decision. It might lead you somewhere else that's even the right path, or like as long as you're doing it, as long as you're making a decision, and even if you don't believe in yourself, as long as you're just moving 1% better every day.
Well, it's like we've talked about. Progress, not perfection. If we're focusing on making progress as we go and not focusing on, is this 100% perfect? Because what's perfect to us may not be perfect to somebody else. But if we're making progress all along the way, and we keep at it, we keep working, we keep learning, we're making progress, the end product is going to take care of itself. We're going to get there. But I can promise you this, we'll get 0 views if we never do any of the things. If we're not recording these, if we're not learning how to get better, if we're not learning how to, draw awareness or improve our topics or whatever it is. But as long as we're making progress, you'll get there.
I know you're not a numbers girl, but I'm taking 5 views over 0 views any day.
Just need the one right view.
Yeah.
Maybe Gary V watches.
Hey,
Gary.
I just think it's, a lot of people get so hung up in, perception and numbers and attaching value to that. And, that can be super detrimental, especially if you combine those thoughts with your imposter syndrome. And so you really need to, like Christian said, control the controllables. As someone who is type A, there's a hard lesson for me to learn. I don't get to control everything, and it's not all going to fall into line the way I want things to fall in line. But the sooner that I was able to let go of expecting perfection from myself and from others, showing grace, when people are struggling. When they fail, you just got to pick you back up and get you going, As soon as I learned those things and to focus on the progress and not that, pristine perfection, it's unattainable, it's unrealistic. That brought me so much more peace and so much more confidence is, control what you can control, be on time. Do good work, educate yourself, learn, all the things that you need to know for your job or for this project or for this relationship, and make progress and have good intentions for that. because it will eventually get you to the place it's supposed to be, and not necessarily, perfect in someone's eyes.
That's great.
I feel like the odd man out.
Why?
I don't have a beard.
Oh, we can edit one in.
AI.
The beard grows.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute my mic because I have a fire alarm going off.
Okay. But I think that's really, I don't have any more questions. I thought this was really good, and I think it's going to be something that is going to do well because it's something that everybody struggles with. And I know even in my personal life, there's things that I could do. And I think most of the time, you mentioned perception. I'm like worried about what other people think and like what they're going to think of what I'm doing or something like that. And there's a lot of times when I'll just tell myself, you don't care. And then I'm like, okay, well, I don't care because like it's my life, do what you want to do. But there's still things that I think that you mentioned that are going to be helpful to more people than just, us two on the podcast listening to you. So we appreciate you coming on, Betsy.
I'm glad to. I just, I want to leave you with just a reminder that it's completely normal. Not everybody is born knowing everything. Everybody's had to learn the hard way, whether they admit it or not. They've had to learn things along the way, and you're not expected to know everything, and at least for my team, for my company, as the employer, I don't expect you guys to know everything. I don't expect y'all to be perfect, but what I expect from you guys is initiative and the willingness to learn, the progress, towards, a great final product. I'm not expecting perfection. And I think those are the things that are going to, make our team into something amazing. Like, it already is. But I think it's only going to make it even better, as we go and as we grow to more team members. I want you guys to be able to walk that walk and talk that talk of like, look, we're not looking for perfection here. We all can learn but as long as we're, always improving and always learning, we're going to be in great shape.
Yeah. I like your progress over perfection saying a lot.
Yeah. It's, like I said, for someone with type A control personality, it was hard to accept. It was really hard to accept, but I can tell you this, that once I accepted it, it is, has brought me so much more peace and clarity, in business and relationships. And, it's just, it puts me just on a much more comfortable level, inside.
Well, we've almost hit an hour, so probably I could talk about this for 4 days straight because I think it's very important, and I think it needs to be talked about more. Last point, speaking on that, same report that they did, it says less than 5% of employers directly address imposter syndrome with their staff. And so thank you for addressing it.
Because, as soon as you just said that, I thought, oh, wow, I didn't bring this up. This was a topic you guys came up with and asked me if I'd be willing to talk about it. And so, of course, I was happy to do that. But I think that instantly I was like, gosh, I should have brought this up. Once again, I should have brought this up and learned about it. But, but I didn't. And so that's, something for me to kind of, work on and understand that. But I can see why, it makes a little sense to me that a lot of people wouldn't bring it up because they feel like the imposter.
They're all human. We're all human.
Yeah. They don't want anybody, they don't want to admit, they want to say like, oh, I felt that way before, or I still feel that way, or I felt that way yesterday, or I felt that way in high school, or I felt that way in college. I think it's kind of people get embarrassed and they don't want to be vulnerable and show that. But no, I appreciate you guys bringing it up, and I'll have to have a little talk with myself over why y'all picked me to talk on this particular topic. but I was absolutely happy to do it. Absolutely happy to do it. And it's not something that, do I think I've 100% conquered imposter syndrome? No. Because it still happens, but I'm making progress every day.
Thank you for being here. I really liked having a guest. This was nice. Nice. Just sitting back and listening a little bit.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add, you or Drew? I'm good.
I don't think so. I think we're good to go.
Well, thank you for everybody who are listening, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you for listening to the 2 for 5 podcast. For more information about the Social Bullpen, head over to thesocialbullpen.com or follow us on social media. We'll see you in the next episode.